I'm 89 years old, and I have spent most of my life not saying what I felt. That sounds small when I say it out loud, harmless even, like I was just a quiet man. But silence can grow roots. It can wind itself around your life so slowly that you don't notice you're being held in place.
Much left to rearrange. The house is smaller now. The voices are fewer. The phone doesn't ring the way it used to. I sit by the window most afternoons and watch the same stretch of road I've watched for 30 years. Cars pass, people come and go, and I think about the things I never said. I'm not telling you this because I want sympathy. At this age, you don't care much about that. I'm telling you because I don't have time to keep it inside anymore, and maybe someone out there still does. When I was a young man, silence felt like strength. I grew up in a house where words were scarce. My father worked with his hands. He believed in providing, not explaining. If something bothered him, he tightened his jaw and carried on. My mother was softer, but even she kept certain feelings tucked away, like they were fragile dishes that might break if handled too often. No one talked about fear or disappointment or love for that matter. You showed up, you did your job, you kept moving. So I learned early that speaking less kept things simple. It kept arguments short. It kept expectations low. If you didn't say what you wanted, no one could refuse you. If you didn't admit you were hurt, no one could use it against you. It felt safe. In my 20s, I met a woman named Lila. She laughed with her whole body. I remember that clearly. We met at a wedding. I was standing near the back, avoiding conversation, and she walked right up to me and asked why I looked like I was attending a funeral. I didn't know how to answer that, so I shrugged. She didn't let me get away with it. She kept talking. I mostly listened. It was easy to be around her because she filled the silence for both of us. We married 2 years later. I loved her, I did, but I don't think I ever said it the way she needed to hear it. Back then, I believed love was proven in other ways. I worked long hours, I made sure the bills were paid, I fixed things around the house before they broke completely. I thought that was enough. She would sometimes sit at the kitchen table late at night, after the children were asleep, and try to talk to me. "Are you happy?" she asked once. I remember that question because it annoyed me. I had just come home from a 12-hour shift. My back hurt. My hands were raw. "What kind of question is that?" I said. "Of course I am." But I didn't really answer her. She wasn't asking about money or stability. She was asking about me, about us, and I gave her a practical response instead of an honest one. That became a pattern. When she was overwhelmed, I told her she was strong. When she cried, I told her it would pass. When she tried to explain that she felt alone, I reminded her that I was right there. Physically, I was. Emotionally, I stayed just out of reach. At work, my silence made me reliable. I didn't complain. I didn't stir trouble. Promotions came slowly, but they came. People described me as steady, dependable, calm under pressure. No one described me as warm. I didn't notice that at the time. We had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. They grew quickly, like children do. I remember school uniforms, scraped knees, science projects on the dining table. I remember being tired, always tired. When my oldest son brought home a drawing he had made of our family, I looked at it for maybe 5 seconds before telling him to clean up his crayons. I had paperwork to finish. Years later, I found that drawing tucked inside a book. In it he had drawn his mother large and smiling in the center. The 3 children stood close to her. I was off to the side, small. I don't think that was an accident, but at the time I didn't see it, or maybe I didn't want to. Silence is convenient. It spares you from uncomfortable conversations. It spares you from admitting you don't know how to respond. When my daughter came to me at 16 and told me she was scared about leaving for university, I told her she'd be fine, that she was smart, that the world rewards hard work. She waited, I think, for something else, maybe for me to say I would miss her, maybe for me to admit that I was scared too. I didn't. I thought reassurance was enough. I didn't understand that reassurance without vulnerability feels distant. My wife tried over the years to reach me. She would say, "Talk to me," not angrily, just softly. And I would say, "About what?" as if feelings required a formal agenda. I wasn't cruel. I never raised my hand to anyone. I didn't drink. I didn't gamble. I came home every night. In my mind, I was a good man. And maybe, in many ways, I was. But goodness without openness has a cost. I just didn't see the bill accumulating. There were small signs. My sons stopped telling me about their disappointments. They told their mother instead. My daughter stopped asking for my opinion on personal matters. She said I wouldn't understand. At the dinner table, conversations flowed around me. I was included, but not invited in. I mistook their distance for independence. I told myself this was how families matured. When Lila grew quieter in her 40s, I assumed she was content. The house was paid off. The children were doing well. We had what we needed. One evening she said, "Do you ever think about what we wanted before all this?" I honestly didn't know what she meant. I had focused so much on maintaining the structure of our life that I never considered whether the inside of it felt empty to her. I said something practical again. I always did. "We wanted stability," I said, "and we have it." She nodded, but her eyes looked tired. If you had asked me then whether I was making a mistake, I would have said no. I believed I was protecting my family from worry. I believed that by keeping my fears to myself, by swallowing my doubts, I was being strong. I thought silence kept things steady. I didn't understand that it was also building walls, walls that would take decades to see clearly. And by the time I did, it would be too late to tear them down. The strange thing about walls is that they don't appear all at once. They rise brick by brick, a conversation avoided here, an apology postponed there, a feeling swallowed because it seemed inconvenient. In my 50s, life looked successful from the outside. The children were grown. Both boys had steady jobs. My daughter was married. There were grandchildren visiting on weekends, leaving toys scattered across the living room floor. Lila would cook too much food the way she always had, and the house would fill with noise again. I enjoyed those days, but even then I stayed in the background. I would sit in my chair and watch everyone talk over one another. If someone asked me a direct question, I answered. Otherwise, I listened. I told myself I liked it that way. One afternoon, my youngest grandfather climbed into my lap and asked me, "Grandpa, were you scared when you were little?" The room went quiet for a moment. It was such a simple question. I laughed and said, "No, I was brave." He nodded, satisfied. Children don't press for details. But that wasn't the truth. I had been scared many times as a child, scared of my father's silence, scared of disappointing him, scared of not being enough. I could have told my grandfather that. I could have given him something real. Instead, I handed him the same armor I had worn my whole life. Be brave. Don't show fear. It felt automatic, like I didn't know how to do anything else. Around that time, Lila started taking longer walks in the evenings. She said it helped her clear her mind. Sometimes I offered to come along. She would smile